The rain came down in sheets that November evening, the kind that soaks you through in seconds and chills you to the bone. Marcus Bryant pulled his worn jacket tighter as he hurried down Maple Street, his 6-year-old daughter Lily's hand clasped firmly in his own. They'd just left the free clinic where Lily had gotten her flu shot, and he was counting the exact change in his pocket, calculating whether they had enough for the bus fare home or if they'd need to walk the extra 2 miles in this downpour. That's when he saw her. She was huddled against the brick wall of Thompson's hardware store, trying to make herself as small as possible beneath the narrow overhang that provided almost no protection from the driving rain. She couldn't have been more than 19 or 20, with matted blonde hair plastered to her face and clothes that hung off her thin frame like they belonged to someone else. Her arms were wrapped around a small bundle pressed against her chest, and even from 15 feet away, Marcus could hear the distinctive cry of an infant cutting through the sound of the storm. Most people were rushing past her, heads down, or umbrellas tilted against the wind. Marcus understood that impulse. He had his own problems, his own struggles. The electricity bill was overdue, Lily needed new shoes, and he'd been working double shifts at the warehouse just to keep their heads above water since his wife Sarah had died 2 years ago. He couldn't save everyone. He could barely save himself. But then the young woman looked up, and their eyes met for just a moment. There was no pleading in her gaze, no expectation of help. Just a hollow, defeated exhaustion that Marcus recognized all too well. It was the look of someone who had been knocked down so many times that they'd stopped expecting anyone to help them up. "Daddy, that lady has a baby," Lily whispered, tugging on his hand. Marcus stopped walking. The sensible part of his brain was screaming at him to keep moving, to protect his own child first, to not get involved. But Sarah's voice echoed in his memory, words she'd said to him 1,000 times. "We help when we can, Marcus. That's what makes us human." He knelt down to Lily's level, the rain soaking through his jeans. "Baby girl, I need you to wait right here under this awning for just a minute, okay? Don't move." Lily nodded, her brown eyes wide and solemn, and Marcus walked over to the young woman. Up close, she looked even worse than he'd thought. Her lips had a bluish tint, and she was shaking so hard he could hear her teeth chattering. The baby in her arms couldn't have been more than a few months old, wrapped in a thin blanket that was already soaked through. "Miss," Marcus said gently, crouching down to her level. "Miss, are you okay?" She looked up at him with glassy eyes, and he realized she was running a fever. When she tried to speak, her voice came out as barely a whisper. Do you have a doghouse I could use? Just for tonight. Me and Emma, we just need somewhere dry and warm. We'll leave in the morning, I promise. I can clean it out after, make it nice again for your dog. Please." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. A doghouse. This girl was so desperate, so utterly at the end of her rope, that she was asking a stranger if she could sleep in a doghouse with her baby. He thought about his own small apartment, about the lumpy couch in the living room, about the risks of bringing a stranger home. Then he thought about what Sarah would do, and he knew there was really only one choice. "I don't have a doghouse," Marcus said softly, shrugging off his jacket. "But I have a couch, and it's a hell of a lot more comfortable. Come on, let's get you and Emma out of this rain." The young woman stared at him in disbelief. I can't." "Yes, you can," Marcus said firmly, draping his jacket around her shoulders. "I'm Marcus. That's my daughter Lily over there. We live about 2 miles from here, but we're going to catch a bus if we hurry. Can you walk?" She nodded slowly, still looking at him like he might disappear at any moment. I'm Chelsea." Marcus helped her to her feet, keeping one hand on her elbow to steady her. She swayed dangerously, and he realized just how weak she was. "When's the last time you ate?" "I don't, yesterday. Maybe the day before. I made sure Emma had her formula, but Her voice trailed off. Marcus felt something twist in his chest. He walked back to Lily, who was watching with wide, concerned eyes. "Change of plans, sweetheart. Chelsea and baby Emma are going to stay with us tonight. Think you can share your nuggets from lunch?" Lily's face lit up with the kind of uncomplicated generosity that only children possess. "I saved half for later. The baby can have them." "Babies can't eat nuggets, Lil," Marcus said with a small smile, ruffling her hair. "But Chelsea can." The bus ride home was quiet. Chelsea sat hunched over Emma, who had finally stopped crying and fallen into an exhausted sleep. Marcus paid their fares with the last of his cash, mentally rearranging his budget for the week. He'd have to walk to work tomorrow, but that was fine. He'd walked farther for less important reasons. When they got to his apartment, a modest two-bedroom on the third floor of a building that had seen better days, Marcus suddenly saw it through Chelsea's eyes. The worn carpet, the furniture from thrift stores, the cracks in the ceiling that the landlord kept promising to fix. But Chelsea looked around like she'd walked into a palace. Bathrooms down the hall, Marcus said, setting his keys on the counter. There's hot water, towels in the cabinet. Lily, can you grab one of your stuffed animals for Emma to look at? Lily scampered off to her room, and Marcus turned to Chelsea. Go take a warm shower, get into some dry clothes. I'll heat up some soup. I don't have any other clothes, Chelsea said quietly. These are all I have. Marcus nodded, swallowing hard. Okay. My wife was about your size. I kept some of her things. You can wear those if you'd like. He saw the hesitation in her eyes, the pride warring with desperate need. Just for tonight, she finally said. I'll wash these and give your wife's things back in the morning. Marcus didn't correct her assumption that Sarah was still alive. That was a conversation for another time. Take your time. I'll watch Emma. The baby was so light when Chelsea handed her over, lighter than Lily had been at the same age. Emma's eyes fluttered open, revealing dark blue irises that studied Marcus's face with the serious concentration of the very young. She made a small cooing sound, and something in Marcus's chest that had been closed off for 2 years cracked open just a little. While Chelsea showered, Marcus heated up a can of chicken noodle soup and made a bottle for Emma. Lily sat on the floor, entertaining the baby with a purple elephant that played a lullaby when you squeezed its foot. The domestic scene felt both comfortable and surreal, like stepping into a life that might have been his in another universe. Chelsea emerged from the bathroom 20 minutes later, her hair clean and combed, wearing one of Sarah's old sweatshirts and a pair of yoga pants. Even pale and exhausted, Marcus could see that she was just a kid herself, barely out of her teens. She looked at the bowl of soup on the table like it was a 5-star meal. Sit, Marcus said gently. Eat. We can talk after. She didn't need to be told twice. She ate, with the single-minded focus of someone who hadn't had a proper meal in days, and Marcus had to resist the urge to make her slow down. When she finally finished, she looked up at him with tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry, she said, wiping at her eyes with the back of her hand. I'm not usually like this. I used to have a job, an apartment. But then I got pregnant, and my boyfriend left, and my parents, they said I made my choice and I had to live with it. I tried so hard to keep it together, but the bills kept piling up, and when I couldn't pay rent, we got evicted. I've been staying at a shelter, but there wasn't any room tonight, and it was so cold, and Emma was crying, and I just... You don't have to explain, Marcus said quietly. Life knocks us down sometimes. It doesn't make you a bad person. I asked you for a doghouse, Chelsea said, her voice breaking. I was going to sleep with my baby in a doghouse. But you're not, Marcus said firmly. You're here, on my couch, and you're safe. That's what matters now. Over the next few hours, as the storm continued to rage outside, a strange but comfortable rhythm developed in the small apartment. Marcus fed Emma while Chelsea ate a second bowl of soup and half of a peanut butter sandwich. Lily insisted on showing Chelsea her entire stuffed animal collection, narrating the name and origin story of each one with the enthusiasm of a museum curator. Chelsea listened with genuine interest, smiling for the first time since Marcus had met her. When it was time for Lily to go to bed, she hugged Chelsea goodnight with the easy affection of a child who hadn't yet learned to be suspicious of the world. I'm glad you're here, Lily whispered. It's nice having other girls in the house. After Lily was asleep, Marcus made up the couch with clean sheets and blankets, creating a little nest for Chelsea and Emma. He showed her where everything was, how the locks worked, where the first aid kit was kept. As he was saying goodnight, Chelsea caught his hand. Why? She asked simply. Why would you help me? You don't know me. I could be anyone. Marcus thought about all the easy answers he could give, about kindness and humanity and doing the right thing. But the truth was more complicated than that. 2 years ago, my wife Sarah died, he said quietly. Car accident. Sudden. One day she was here, and the next she was gone. And in those first few weeks, when I didn't know how I was going to survive, When I didn't know how to take care of Lily on my own, people helped us. Neighbors brought food. Sarah's friend Diane picked Lily up from school every day for 2 months. The guy at the corner store let me run a tab when money was tight. They didn't have to do any of that, but they did. And their kindness kept us afloat until I could figure out how to breathe again. He met Chelsea's eyes. You asked me for a doghouse, and that broke something in me. Because I know what it's like to feel that desperate, that alone. And if I can help someone else the way people helped me, then maybe Sarah's death meant something. Maybe the world isn't quite as dark as it sometimes seems. Chelsea was crying again, but this time there was something different in her tears. Not just despair, but also relief, gratitude, hope. I don't know how to thank you. You don't have to, Marcus said. Just get some rest. Tomorrow we'll figure out the next steps. But tomorrow came with its own surprises. Marcus woke up early, as he always did, and found Chelsea already awake, sitting on the couch with Emma. She'd folded the blankets neatly and was staring at her phone with a strange expression on her face. Everything okay? Marcus asked, padding into the living room in his socks. I got an email, Chelsea said slowly. From a job I applied for 3 months ago. They want to interview me today. For a position at a marketing firm downtown. It's entry level, but it has benefits, and they specifically mentioned childcare assistance in the email. That's amazing, Marcus said, genuinely pleased. Then reality set in. But you need clothes for an interview. And someone to watch Emma. Chelsea's face fell. I know. I don't even know why I'm excited. There's no way I can make this work. Yes, you can, Marcus said, his mind already working through the logistics. I'm calling into work today. I've got sick days saved up. Lily's in school until 3. You wear one of Sarah's professional outfits, she had a whole closet full from her teaching days. Emma stays here with me. You go to that interview and you knock it out of the park. I can't ask you to do that, Chelsea protested. You're not asking. I'm offering. Marcus pulled out his phone. What time is the interview? 3 hours later, Chelsea stood in the doorway of Marcus's apartment wearing Sarah's navy blue blazer and dress pants, her hair styled, with a folder of resumes that Marcus had helped her print at the library down the street. She looked like a completely different person from the desperate girl who'd been huddled against a brick wall the night before. You've got this, Marcus said, Emma balanced on his hip. Just be yourself. Tell them your story. Anyone who doesn't see your value isn't worth working for. Chelsea gave him a watery smile. If I get this job, when I get back on my feet, I'm going to pay this forward, Marcus. I swear to you. I know you will, Marcus said. Now go. Don't want to be late. The hours that followed were long and nerve-wracking. Marcus fed Emma, played with her, walked her around the apartment when she got fussy. He texted his boss, dealt with the disappointed response, and tried not to think about the fact that he'd just used one of his precious few sick days for a stranger. But every time doubt crept in, he remembered Chelsea's face when she'd asked about the doghouse, and he knew he'd made the right choice. Chelsea came back at 2:30, and Marcus knew from the look on her face before she even said a word. I got it, she breathed. I got the job. They said I was exactly what they were looking for. Someone who'd overcome adversity, who understood what it meant to fight for something. They want me to start next week. Marcus felt a grin spread across his face. I told you that you had this. Over the next week, the apartment took on a life Marcus hadn't experienced since Sarah's death. Chelsea stayed in the spare room that Marcus had been using for storage, and they fell into an easy routine. She was at work, Marcus picked up Lily from school. He was at the warehouse, Chelsea watched Lily and they did homework together. They traded off cooking duties, split grocery bills, and somewhere in the endless negotiations over whose turn it was to take out the trash, they became a family. Not in the traditional sense, maybe. But in the way that mattered most, in the way that Sarah had always believed in, they became a unit, a team, a safe place for each other in a world that so often felt unsafe. 3 months later, Marcus came home from work to find Chelsea sitting at the kitchen table, looking at apartment listings on her laptop. His heart sank. He'd known this day was coming, had known that she couldn't stay forever, but he'd grown accustomed to the noise, the chaos, the feeling of not being alone. Found something? He asked, trying to keep his voice neutral. Chelsea looked up at him, and there was something unreadable in her expression. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about that. I've been saving up from my job, and I can afford a place now. A small one-bedroom, nothing fancy, but it's mine. I could move out next month. That's great, Chelsea. Really. Marcus meant it, even though a part of him was already mourning the loss of her presence in his life. Or, Chelsea said slowly, I could stay here. Pay you rent, split everything 50-50. Emma needs stability, and honestly, so do I. You and Lily, you've become our family. If that's something you'd want. Marcus felt something warm unfold in his chest. You know, he said, sitting down across from her, Sarah used to say that family wasn't about blood. It was about showing up. About being there when it mattered. About giving someone your arm instead of showing them to a doghouse. Chelsea laughed, tears streaming down her face. Is that a yes? That's a yes, Marcus confirmed. Welcome home, Chelsea. That night, after both children were asleep, Marcus and Chelsea sat on the couch with mugs of tea, watching the rain that had started to fall outside the window. It wasn't the same kind of punishing storm that had brought them together, just a gentle autumn rain that tapped peacefully against the glass. You know what the worst part was? Chelsea said quietly. That night when I asked you about the doghouse. The worst part wasn't the cold or the hunger or even the fear. It was feeling invisible. Like I'd become someone that people looked through instead of at. Like my life didn't matter anymore. Your life mattered, Marcus said firmly. It always mattered. You just needed someone to remind you. You gave me more than a place to stay, Chelsea said. You gave me back my humanity. My dignity. Hope for a future that doesn't look like sleeping in a doghouse with my baby. Marcus thought about that night, about the choice he'd made to stop, to help, to open his home to a stranger. It hadn't been easy. There had been moments of doubt, times when he'd questioned his own judgment. But looking at Chelsea now, seeing the life and strength that had returned to her eyes, seeing Emma sleeping peacefully in her little portable crib, he knew that some decisions transcend logic. Some acts of kindness create ripples that spread farther than we can ever imagine. Sarah would have liked you, Marcus said softly. She always said that the measure of a person wasn't what they had, but what they were willing to give. You've been fighting for Emma with everything you have, even when you had nothing. That's not weakness, Chelsea. That's the strongest thing in the world. Outside, the rain continued to fall, washing the streets clean, nurturing the earth, promising the renewal that comes with every storm. And inside the small apartment on Maple Street, a family, bound not by blood but by choice, by kindness, by the simple act of seeing another person's humanity and choosing to honor it, settled in for the night. Because sometimes, the most revolutionary thing you can do in a world that so often turns away is to offer your arm instead of pointing to a doghouse. To see someone at their lowest and remind them of their worth. To understand that we're all one bad break, one stroke of misfortune, away from needing someone else's kindness to survive. Marcus had given Chelsea a couch when she'd asked for a doghouse. In return, she'd given him something he hadn't even known he needed, a reminder that opening your heart, even when it's been broken, even when you barely have enough for yourself, is never a mistake. That love multiplies rather than divides. That family is something you build, one small act of courage at a time. And on that rainy November night, in a modest apartment in a building that had seen better days, 4 people who had started as strangers proved that the most powerful force in the world isn't money or status or even luck. It's the simple, stubborn, beautiful decision to show up for another human being, no strings attached, no conditions applied. Just one person saying to another, you matter, your life matters, and I'm going to prove it by giving you my arm when you're too tired to stand on your own. That's the kind of story that doesn't make the news, that doesn't trend on social media, that happens quietly in the margins of ordinary life. But it's the kind of story that changes everything, that reminds us who we are and who we can choose to be, one small act of kindness at a time.